Hello everybody. Today we welcome a familiar face, Lieven Smeyers. Lieven is the CEO and Lito and of Lito and has already participated in the Bao Podcast before almost 2 years ago and is now back for part 2. He and his team developed the Lito box, which contains every component you need for heating and cooling your house and for making domestic hot water. It combines a ventilation system that guarantees air quality, a rainwater purification system, the indoor components for a photovoltaic installation, an electrical switchboard, and internet equipment. Optionally, a battery pack can be added as well. Thanks to off-site assembly and testing, your building process is enormously speeded up as it can be installed, connected, and commissioned in only a few hours. I'm very curious to hear more about all the evolutions of the past 2 years, so let's dive straight into it, Lieven. How are you doing today?
Fine. Thanks, Benjamin, for having me for part 2. Looking forward.
Same. I think your previous episode was one of the listeners' favorites. So,
is it?
Yeah. It's got listened quite a lot, also on YouTube.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Oh. Not to put any pressure.
Okay.
It has been a little bit more than 2 years since you last visited. Can you maybe update the audience on what has happened in the last 2 years since you were previously here?
Quite a lot. We had some challenging and rough times, but we reached, however, also some quite important milestones. I have been thinking about this question, and a lot of people are working very hard at this particular moment to develop a new Lito box, to deliver new boxes that have that for projects that will be coming in the next weeks. But I, however, picked 3 milestones over the last 2 years. And a very important one in terms of sales is we did the first plus 1 million euro project. It was a project...
Congratulations.
Thanks. A project that we sold end of 2023 and that we executed last year. It was a deep energy retrofit of social housing in Genk in Belgium. 27 houses, so we delivered there the Lito boxes. So that was a milestone in terms of sales, because that was the first time we did such a big project. In terms of tech, we also had a quite important milestone, I think, although it isn't really reached yet, but maybe you remember that I told you we were developing an own controller.
Yes.
Based on, I would say, Siemens architecture. So we created our own controller, and the big advantage is that it communicates directly in the box with all the components.
And the idea was that you could read it out from a distance.
Exactly.
Right?
So we 2 ways. So we can not only read the data coming from the photovoltaic inverter, from the heat pump, from the pumps, 3-way valves, etc. But we can also do parameterization from a distance. So we can change parameters from a distance. And we are not longer depending on the cloud-based solutions or the APIs of the suppliers. So we have a direct connection in the box to all these components. So we've worked quite hard on that. And the first Lito boxes with this equipment are already delivered. And now we have the advantages right now. But there is huge possibilities in the futures for that. So second milestone, our controller. And then in terms of...
Quick question.
Yeah?
That's been developed, that's being placed inside the Lito boxes right now?
Yeah, so you have the electric cabinet. Of course, you have all the electric equipment. And then we integrated our controller, and the controller communicates with the heat quantity measurement systems, the electricity meters, the photovoltaic system, the heat pump, etc., straight to the PCB of the product. So even if the heat pump manufacturer says their cloud-based platform is out of order for some reason, then we still have access to the heat pump.
And can you maybe explain to the audience what would be the benefit for someone who lives in a building that has a Lito box?
The benefit is that, first of all, we can monitor several parameters at the same time. So we can have an impact, we can have a look at, we can see what's the energy consumption of a certain apartment and what's the profile of the apartment itself, which means sometimes you have a very high energy consumption, but the temperature in the apartment doesn't rise or lower. That means there is losses somewhere. Maybe there's a window open, you left on a holiday, and the heating is still on. These are typical things that you want to see, you want to monitor yourself. If the energy measuring device is a separate device from the heat pump, for instance, it isn't that easy to get this data together, because the interval on which you get the data from the measuring device is maybe 3 minutes, and while the heat pump only provides you with the information every hour or every 2 hours. Now we can choose the interval ourselves. So we can source the data on a 3-second base for all the components, and then we can select, okay, an outside temperature sensor, for instance, we only need that measurement every 20 minutes, but the sanitary hot water consumption, I want to know every 5 seconds. So we can choose all these parameters ourselves to create a platform on which we have data which we can compare one apartment with another, one Lito box with another, and even one city with another, taking in consideration also the outside temperature or the solar irradiance at that moment. So we bring together all these data, and we create our own platform only with the data that we really need in the interval that we need it.
Wow.
But your question was, what's in it for the people living in the building? Of course, it is more efficiency, less consumption, and then higher efficiency of the installations. That's it.
Yeah. So if you live in a building with a Lito, your bill is lower. If you are a developer or an owner of a building and you buy a Lito, and you rent out the
Exactly.
heating and the water and the
Yeah,
electricity
yeah.
to the end user,
Yeah.
you have a higher efficiency and it's more sustainable.
Exactly. So our biggest client at this moment is an ESCO, an energy service company, and they are really interested in very well operating installations, not only in terms of energy consumption, but also in terms of maintenance. Because the more you know from an installation, the less maintenance on site you have to do. Sometimes you can see a heat pump isn't running really fine, and at that moment, it makes sense to do an extra maintenance. But on the other hand, if the installation is still running quite fine after 2 years, maybe you don't have to go there yet. You can take another 6 months before you go on a maintenance. So it has a certain value. It comes with a cost, maintenance. And so if we can improve the energy consumption and we can lower the maintenance costs, you have a lower total cost of ownership, and that's exactly what energy service companies want. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's point 2.
And then I had the third point, and this has to do with the
final
future.
question.
Yeah?
Sorry. Can the owner access this platform?
It depends. It depends who the owner is. So we have different levels of access to the platform. Of course, you will never give access to an end user, a tenant in a building. You will never give him or her access to the energy consumption figures of the neighbor. That would be GDPR-wise, wouldn't be okay at all. But we can we can use this data without putting names or addresses on it, just to see how are the Lito boxes behaving. So in that case, the private data isn't used at all. It's just to check if the installation is running correctly. And we can provide this data as well to the ESCO, so the party that is in charge for the maintenance. And of course, we will send the data of the energy consumption once a month to the building manager, who sends out the invoices for the energy consumption to every client.
Okay.
So, but the level entries that, or the access levels, that's part of discussion, but it really depends on the sites. Sometimes the ESCO takes care of everything, as well the energy invoicing, as the maintenance, as the energy consumption. Sometimes it is two different parties. Sometimes the ESCO just takes care of the maintenance, and the energy billing is done by a building manager, for instance.
Okay.
It really depends of the project.
And the platform, the UI of the platform itself, that's also developed by Lito.
Yeah.
Impressive.
No, that's it's mainly our data analyst David who's working on this, and he's one of the guys in the office that is staring at his screen hours a day, and if we pass, we don't see anything but 1,000 characters, and we don't understand the clue of it. But at the end of the day, he says, come and have a look, and then, okay, then I can see the exact graph that I needed. I want to see what was the energy consumption of that 25 heat pumps today, and then he comes up with a graph.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why do you invest so heavily in this? Because I hear there's someone full-time working on it.
Yeah, that's true.
Does it help with commercialization today?
Yeah, I think it will be the more identical installations you have, the more interesting it becomes. It would be I would say, a stupid investment if you build a different heat pump installation every day, because then the initial cost is way too high. But we try to standardize as much as possible in such a way that if we adding a new Lito box to the platform isn't the high cost, because the structure is there already, the platform is there already. What we are doing now is mainly getting a better control of the quality of the data. For instance, if there is if the internet was cut for an hour, or if there is a short electricity cut out, you get very high, or shall I say, values that can create alarms, that can mess up your data or your graphs. And what David at this moment is really doing is finding, smoothing this out. Yeah, that's what he's mainly working on. So it's a work in progress, but the base is there. We can use it already, and it will be better every month. So
do they need to pay to get access to it?
Difficult question. So far we have developing. We have just a yearly fee for the internet use. It's more
there's internet connection in the Lito
There's
box.
two versions. All the building is equipped, and that's what we asked with a stable internet, a fixed connection, and then there is a yearly fee that is very low, that you just pay for our cloud-based server. That's one thing. But on the other hand, what we've seen is often there isn't internet yet when we deliver the Lito boxes. So imagine a new building. We put the Lito box on top. It is connected with the apartments, and the installer starts to do the commissioning. That's for us the most interesting part. It's the first month that the Lito box is in operation, because often you have the errors at that moment, not if the installation is already running for a year. And the big problem we face so far is that it's very exceptional that there is already internet at that moment, at that stage. So we have developed in the new electric switchboard, we have developed an easy plug-and-play solution to integrate 4G, probably 5G. I have to ask David to have the final choice we've made. But the goal is, from the moment we have electricity in the Lito box, which you always have if you want to start up, that we already have access to these data. Because it's important that it's the most critical period of an installation is the first months. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's go to point 3.
Point 3 has to do with the future of Lito box and IP, so intellectual property. We developed quite, shall I say, innovative solution to do via additive manufacturing, 3D printing, to create the most complex hydraulic part in the Lito box. So an hydraulic installation or a heating installation is full of pumps, three-way valves, sensors, pipes, connections, etc. That they are quite labor-intensive, and they come with a lot of risks, because every fitting you connect can be a leakage. So at a certain moment we decided, wouldn't it be great if we could just print it overnight? So you create the most difficult Lito box with all the ins and outs, and you just ask your 3D printer at night, just prepare it, and the next morning you start assembling.
It's basically the heart of the Lito box.
It's the heart of the Lito box. Right. It could be. You could really consider it as a heart. So there is a lot of ins and outs. Exactly. And the big advantage is you make it much more compact. And we are working on it now. But the milestone we reached with that is that we got the Belgian patent of it on this innovation, and the European patent is pending.
Okay.
Yeah. So and
any specific countries, because we have the European patents as well.
No, we
choose which language, which countries we.
No, we could choose. We could choose to go for 3 or 4 countries, if I'm right, and then we decided to go all the way, and so we went for the whole of Europe.
26 countries.
Yeah.
So 26 yearly. Yeah, I know this.
Yeah. We had to make a choice at a certain point, and then I said, "Hey, come."
UK as well?
I'm not. Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'll have to
I don't
dive
know.
deeper into that. But still, so it could be quite important or disruptive solution, because in fact, of course, we developed it in the first place to integrate it in the Lito box, because I want to eliminate this labor-intensive part that comes with a lot of risks. But in fact, you could integrate it in any heat pump. You could integrate it in any house, in any hydraulic installation that needs maintenance or that needs to be refurbished after a certain period. So it could be bigger than Lito box.
And it has
at
been,
the long term.
The patent protection has been in place, eh?
Yeah.
Otherwise, we need to cut this entire section. Eh? Okay.
Yeah, it is already published under the name
Alright.
Lito box. You can find it in Espasnet. So the Belgian patent is there already, and the European is still in, how's it called, pending.
Yeah.
Because that's a longer procedure. That takes, I think, 3 years or 4 years in total.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you 3D print these
we are actually
Lito box hearts yourself?
Yeah, we have a partner for it right now, but I think in the future, if it's the advantage to do the 3D printing ourselves in the future would be that imagine it also, you're really like printing a spaghetti. That's more or less how it looks like. And the advantage is you can have a library of 50 or 100 different hydraulic solutions. And you can decide in the evening, okay, tomorrow we have to build 3 of these Lito boxes that have their heat pump on the left, they have the puffer tank on the right side, there is a solar thermal system on top. So I want, and it has to cope with this flows and this performances, 20 kilowatt of cooling, for instance. Okay, this is the spaghetti that we need tomorrow morning, and you can start printing it at that moment. So it brings you a lot of flexibility as well in terms of you don't need a lot of parts on stock, and you can do it at a moment that you aren't doing any other things, like for instance printing overnight. That's because it will be a complex part. You won't print it in 50 minutes, so it will take probably the proto that we have printed right now took a whole night. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's mostly efficiencies in the product. It removes, let's say, 50 parts in the previous, and now it's one 3D printed element.
Exactly, and what the investigation that we are doing on it right now, because it became an innovative project of Vlio as well, and what we are testing right now is what will be the impact on the hydraulics, because now it becomes a little more technical, but if you push a certain flow of water or a fluid through a pipe or through a structure, it comes with pressure drop. It creates friction. And the spaghetti that we are developing right now we are developing it in such a way that we can keep this pressure drop as low as possible. So it won't be only very compact, but the pressure drop over the system will also be lower than the traditional installation. So you have less energy losses, you have less pump energy costs, because the pump it's really like it's like a body. So consider the printed part as your heart. The smoother you make it, the smoother it runs.
Right. Yeah. So making this have very low resistance also has a positive impact on the total cost of ownership, because electricity usage goes down.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. I saw a couple of months ago, I saw movies showcasing something similar, but in a car. Mm-hmm. I know Tesla, they have been doing this with their new editions of the Model 3 and the Model Y. Mm-hmm. I saw that, body part production. Yeah. In the previous editions and in basically every car that's being produced today, like the front end or like 50 small pieces that get in the factory get stitched together robotically mostly, but they get how do you call it?
Welded together.
Welded together.
Yeah.
And now they bought like the world's biggest metal press machine, and it just presses the entire front of a
Yeah.
new Model Y or a Model 3 out of one single
Yeah.
metal
Yeah.
frame.
Yeah.
It's similar.
Yeah, you need high volumes for that. I've been dreaming of that as well. Imagine if you could press half of a Lito box in one metal piece. Because now we work the way we make our frames now and our mounting brackets, etc. It is a little bit like welding a car together, and then you put an insulated shell around it. So if you could just stamp it in 5 parts, yeah, you can imagine what the impact would be on cost and then you can give it any shape you want. But of course, we aren't at automotive volumes, unfortunately.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, cool. So those are the biggest 3 new elements.
Probably one of the biggest milestones we reached over the last 2 years. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. So I assume that there were also, outside of the highlights that you mentioned now, there have also been probably some big challenges, I assume, throughout the last couple of years. Can you say a little bit more about those and how you overcame them?
Last year we've had some scaling challenges because we went from the startup to the scale-up phase. We tripled our turnover last year. And every company will recognize the situation. At a certain moment, you have quite a lot of sales and you need quite a lot of cash. And I really have to thank it. This might sound strange because the standard position people have towards banks is not always very positive. But I really have to thank my banker.
Okay.
Yeah, because exactly 1 year ago, we were in this position that we had to build, we had to construct for €1 million Lito boxes. So we needed a load of cash to do the pre-financement. And I explained them what we were doing because we were new to them. It's our new bank. I explained them what we were doing. And in fact, it didn't take so much time or effort to get a straight loan. Of course, they needed a signed contract, and of course, they needed some certainties as well. But I was really impressed by the fact that it felt like they were really believing in our company and in our solutions. And at this moment, we are in the same position. So I went for a straight loan, and again, they did their best to get it sorted out. So cash was definitely one of the challenges that we had to face last year. But luckily, we could.
Can you say which bank it was?
Yes, it was Belfius.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So shout out to Belfius. Yeah. So that's one issue. And if I think of another huge issue that we had last year, I think it had to do with electrics. So in because we have been talking about hydraulics, so you create heat or cooling or sanitary hot water. But of course, a very important part of our products is electric connections as well, the electric cabinet, but also everything that has to do with especially wiring. And what we decided to do, and it's only the last 6 months that I decided to do that, is we outsourced the pre-production of the electric cabinets. So we found a very competent partner for that. And we did the same with the cable harness. So we created a cable harness. It took some effort to do that. But to give you an idea, the Litobox L7 rooftop that we are building right now comes with 100 cables. So it's 100 times someone measuring, cutting, stripping, putting shrinking caps on it, labeling, connecting in the switchboard, connecting on the component. So, and what we did, in fact, we developed a cable harness that comes with plugs. The electric switchboard is also developed with female plug connectors. And what took us one day before, we will probably do in one hour now. So that's I'm very happy, in fact, that we had these issues, because otherwise we should maybe still do it today the old-fashioned way, And there is a huge improvement on that. So we really turned that problem, or we tackled that problem, and we came up with a very competent solution.
And is that maybe an insight, like problems are gifts in a way?
Yeah, I always liked problems, and I always liked, how shall I say, I like it when we are put to stress. Because then if you don't have a lot of means, I'll say, and you have a huge problem, you have no other solutions than creativity to solve it, and to do it with your own brain and hands. And this was such a solution. It was really, we were in a situation where we didn't have the person to solve our problem, and then we said, okay. Let's think how could we simplify, and we even changed the layout in the Lito box in order to be able to use a harness, a cable harness, because the cable harness comes with difficulties as well. You have to, you can't go around every part or go through the trajectory that we follow with our wires is changed because of the harness. Because now the whole box is built first, and then you put the harness in, while in the old solution, you could build half of the components, already connect some wiring, and then put the rest. So it was it had quite an impact, but I'm very happy that we did it.
Yeah, it sounds like quite an efficiency jump.
Yeah.
If you go from 100 individual cables to like a one element you can place. Yeah.
And that's a lesson that I've learned, Benjamin, and I didn't know that in the beginning, because it also had to do with the fact that we used to work together with Tom, so the initial co-founder, and he had the technical staff to do this. And as long as you have people that can that think in a traditional way and that build in a traditional way, you are not too focused on innovation. And here there was really like, we had an issue, we had to solve it, we had to tackle it, and we did it. And that's one of the lessons I've learned. Sometimes it is better to, instead of trying to solve a problem yourself, is to arrange some meetings with your suppliers, or to find a supplier that can do the thing for you. And finally, it ended up cheaper than doing it the traditional way. So that's definitely one of the lessons we've learned.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's the next big part? Because the flow has been 3D printed, simplified, the electricity. Those sounds like the two biggest, most complex elements.
Yeah, if in terms of Lito, building the Lito box itself, it is one of the most important things. Of course, the structure, the insulated panels and doors, etc. There's quite a lot of labor in it as well, and a lot of risk as well. But I think the next big step will be commissioning the Lito box, because now we deliver the box on site, and then there is an installing company taking over. And honestly, there we tackle still, or there we face still some problems. As I already told you, often there is no internet, so we can't follow up the installation, and then we get a phone call, the heat pump is an alarm. It stopped, something is wrong, and we can't control it from a distance. Very frustrating. But also on the other hand, often, and we have had the case recently, half of the installation is connected and commissioned, and then a few weeks later, and it runs fine, smooth, and then after a few weeks, they decide, okay, we will add another apartment. And they open the valve, and there is a lot of air coming into a system, for instance, and then it goes in alarm. So what I think the next big step would be for us is to organize a pre-programmed commissioning program. So now you need a plumber that opens a valve, thus evacuates the air from one apartment, and then in a certain order, they have to bleed the whole system. And we have electronic valves on every circuit. So what we are thinking now is, can't we do this electronically? Can't we just manually open the valves, and then via the Siemens controller, because we have straight connection with every pipe to every apartment, just create a program in such a way so we can make the pump running, we can open a valve, bleed the system. So, and that's what we are thinking of, but because you really need a guy that is competent to do it, and it takes some hours to do this.
But then you would need like a type of motor on the valve to open and close the valve.
No, it is there already. Because, in fact, we use this circuit to heat an apartment. And we already have this actuator on the circuit, because if your room thermostat says it's hot enough or it's cold enough in my apartment, we already close this in an electronic way. So the hardware is there already. The connection with our controller is there already. So what we have to do now is to create a program. And that will definitely be one of the biggest steps in the future to make commissioning easier as well. That will give a lot of extra comfort for the plumber, but it will comfort us as well, because then we know for sure then that it is done the proper way in the right order, and we can even write a report for it. It won't be on the short term, but I'm quite sure in the long term, in a few years from now, every Lito box will be equipped with such a startup program, automatic startup program. Yeah.
So if we sit again in 2 years, that's good.
Let's hope so. I can maybe show you at that.
That's gonna be point 1.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea about point 2 and point 3? Without saying too much, Lieven.
I gave away already quite a lot. I think. No. If we can start, so development will be digital. That's for sure. That there will be the heart. Then the additive manufacturing will be quite an important part as well.
What do you mean with additive manufacturing?
3D printing.
Right.
Because 3D printing, in fact, what we were doing now is not really printing. It is sintering. It is also additive manufacturing, but it's not like 3D printing is like you melt a plastic and you create a shape. What we were doing, sintering, is more like lasering. You have like a reservoir that's filled with powder, and with a laser beam, you sinter this together. That's also additive manufacturing. So you can compare it to 3D printing, but it's not exactly the same. Yeah. Okay. So now I think there is already some challenge in this.
I can imagine.
Innovations, in developing these innovations. Yeah.
Any customer feedback or insights that you've gotten in the last couple of years that really surprised you or inspired you?
The thing is that we don't have direct contact with the end user. So if you live in an apartment that's heated or cooled by Lito box, you won't contact us. You just see, okay, this is a low energy bill. You will be happy with that. So we don't have direct contact with the end client. And often end clients, they aren't really into their heating installation. But however, we had one feedback, indirect feedback last year that surprised me. I told you about the project, our biggest project so far in Genk, where we did a renovation of the social housing, the social houses. And in fact, it is a neighborhood with 140 houses. And the social housing company decided we will renovate 27 of them. That was in their budget. And then they were looking for volunteers because it was a very innovative project. The people stayed in their houses while the house was renovated. And it was quite impactful because there were pipes, ventilation tubes through the whole building. On the outside, they got new facades, pre-insulated facades, and then on the outside we put the Lito box as well. That was not that, shall I say, intrusive in the building. So in the beginning, it wasn't very easy to find volunteers for this because a lot of people were afraid, what are they going to do to my house? And then finally they did some efforts and they found these 27 families. Throughout this renovation, unfortunately, one of the families fell off. For some reason, I don't know the exact reason, but so they ended up with a budget for one extra renovation, and the Lito box was built already because we had it on stock to deliver it in time for this particular building. And then they did the second round. They asked again to the people living in the other houses in the neighborhood, who's interested, because then they already could see what the impact was. They could see this is the impact of an insulated house, and this is the impact of having a heat pump and a solar system, etc. And then all of a sudden they had tens of families that were interested. So that was one of the most positive feedbacks we could have, because in the beginning they were really like shy. What's going to happen to the house, and do I really want all this inconvenience of people in and outside my house? And after they had seen what the impact was, how good the building looked, how well it performed in terms of comfort, there were loads of people, and then they had to disappoint quite some families because they only had budget for one renovation extra. So that's the closest we went to end user feedback.
And direct customer feedback.
Direct customer feedback, our clients are installing companies or real estate developers or main contractors. The feedback we got from them over the last year, which we used, was that the Lito box was too big, too high, too large. Often you don't have a lot of roof space. And most of the Lito boxes we built nowadays, they are put outside, not inside the building, but outside the building, which I really like because we don't have to interfere on the building process. If the building is ready, the roof is ready, we will come with the Lito box and put it on top. And often you have architects that don't like to see equipment on the roof because it's considered the fifth facade. So they want to have a nice, clear, open, flat roof space. And the boxes that we used to build that are put on top of the roof were 2.4 meters high, which is almost the floor level. And then we could make it almost 1 meter lower by rethinking the layout. And so we didn't come up with a high box, a slim but high box, but with a box that is much lower, but is longer. It's 4 meters long, 4 by 1.5 meters, so 6 square meters. And then finally we decided that this is the ideal space to integrate solar panels. So what we do now is, if we deliver such a rooftop Lito box, we integrate 6 square meters of solar panels, and in fact we don't take any space on the roof, because if you would have put the solar panels just on the roof itself, it would have taken as much space as with an integrated Lito box.
And those rooftop models are what you call an L7?
Yeah, the L7 means that it is a collective installation or semi-collective. You can connect more apartments to one box, and you have a high version and you have a low version. So the L7 is the collective Lito box, and the L7 rooftop is the lower version with the integrated solar panels. Okay. Which isn't on our website yet. We have to. Okay. We are building them. We are very, how shall I say, very hard working on them day and night, that we didn't even have the time to put them on the website yet.
But that's a good problem to have, right?
Indeed.
If you're already selling and installing them without making any advertisement.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, in fact, we didn't change the technology that much. So the shape changed, but the logic of the heat pump, the buffer tanks, the measuring devices, the electric cabinet, everything that is in it, you can compare with the old version. It's rather the shape and the integration of some extra components that makes the difference. Yeah.
Great. It's impressive that you can completely change the layout of the product in quite a short notice, or on quite a short notice.
Yeah.
Because of feedback of a customer. That's
awesome.
It
was not only the customer, but if you've heard this, if the third architect tells you, why don't you make this box lower, then you really start thinking, maybe we should. Mm-hmm. Even if it was quite a challenge to do it, but by creating, by integrating the solar system and by integrating the heat pump module as well, we could create extra value as well, because a longer box is more expensive than a slim high one. In terms of structure, because we put it with a crane on the roof, you need more steel if you want a low version than a slim high version. And
so the longer one is slightly more expensive.
Yeah. So by integrating solar in it, by integrating the module of the heat pump in it, so the outside module of the heat pump in it, we created some extra value that compensates for the extra cost of the frame. The structural frame is much more expensive than the old version.
Okay, Fascinating.
Yeah.
And with the solar panels on top of the 6 square meters of solar panels, how much electricity? Is there enough electricity to run a heat pump?
Not at all, because it is solar thermal panels. So we could choose between photovoltaic panels, and although the performance of photovoltaic panels increased enormously, I think 2 square meter of solar panels nowadays they will provide you in Belgium with more than 500 kilowatt hours of energy on a yearly base. So then it would be 1,500 kilowatt hours if it would be like full photovoltaic panels. But we decided to make it solar thermal panels. You have the photovoltaics still as well around the Lito box, and the inverter and all the electric equipment is in the box. But the reason why we chose to integrate a solar thermal system on top is because then you eliminate the pipes. A photovoltaic system only comes with a cable. That's very easy. You put the panels somewhere, you just run a cable to the inverter and it's ready. A solar thermal system, on the other hand, you have pipes that you have to insulate, and you have to protect them as well. By using them as kind of the roof in our Lito box, it's one big panel. It comes with 2 flexible connections, and they are directly connected to the pump and to the buffer tank in the Lito box. So we eliminated all the pipes on the roof for the solar thermal system.
Right, because they're part of the Lito box.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the benefit of that for the end customer? Less piping?
Less piping, less labor hours as well, because it is already integrated in the box. So the labor cost for us to integrate it in the box is always lower than to put it with a crane in an extra crane movement on the roof. Then you have to create a structure to put it on. You have to secure that. You have to protect all the piping. Now it's already all integrated. We don't use a lot of roof space. That's another advantage. And also, you don't have the losses anymore, because normally a thermal solar system has some losses. The piping that are running on the roof, they have energy losses. And now the energy losses are in the Lito box, so they are immediately...
Shortest possible route.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Great. Very cool to hear how every challenge gets morphed into a technical product optimization at Lito. That's very cool. Maybe if we zoom out a bit from the product itself, what are like the biggest lessons in entrepreneurship that you learned the last couple of years?
One very important lesson that I've learned is that your passion isn't always someone else's passion. And unfortunately, I have seen that I'm really driven by the product. So, and I know on the long term how the product will look like, where it has to be improved, and how I want to change the world by entering with this product. And that's my energy, that runs my passion and my enthusiasm. And that makes also that I can bring quite big offers and efforts to make it happen. And the problem is that, and you will recognize this situation probably as well, if you're really driven by passion, you sometimes forget that not everything around you is also driven by the same passion. And that's a lesson I've learned. For me, it doesn't have to do in the first place, but who owns the company, who founded the company, who is working in it. It's really like what drives you from the morning to the evening during your day. And unfortunately, I think maybe for some people I worked with, I was a little too passionate, and I forgot that they have different passions or other ways of working. And I told you earlier that I've co-founded the company 7 years ago with Tom. And last year he decided to step out of Lito box. And one of the reasons probably is also, I think, this difference in speed and in passion that we had for the product. He ran another company as well. And it is impossible to run 2 companies in the way I'm running mine. So, and that's one of the lessons I've learned. If you start collaborating with someone, with a co-founder or with a colleague, that sometimes you have to think, how far can they go in the efforts they want to bring to make your great product or the product you have in mind? That's a lesson I've learned. Another lesson that I've learned is that sometimes,
Maybe one question.
yeah,
Would you ever would you say that no more co-founders?
no, not at all, not at all. But I think it is important that you know there are different speeds.
And how would you test this the next time? Because it's difficult to find out before you actually collaborate for a couple of years.
Yeah, there is maybe a concept that we didn't use enough, and that's also one of the lessons that I've learned. There is something they call ownership, not ownership of a company, but ownership of a part of a solution or of a technical issue or of a component in your product. You can give someone ownership of the electric cabinet. You can give someone ownership of a pressure test or ownership of a technical file, for instance. And maybe what we've done too less in the past, and that I will definitely do more in the future with my colleagues, is to give them ownership of a part of the company. So if we would have done this earlier, probably it would have been much more clear what I was lacking or what I was expecting and that wasn't really coming. And maybe it would have been much easier for him as well to explain that it wasn't possible to him to deliver.
So does that mean that if you would do it again, you would say, for example, Mr. Co-founder or Mrs. Co-founder, you're responsible for manufacturing, and if they don't succeed, you don't intervene, but you really let them go to the point of like, doesn't work, so that it also becomes clear for them, because that's what I hear, no? Like
I think
in the past you would intervene.
Probably it would be easier for all parties to understand where is the frustration, where did we come to a standstill, and how does it come? We have some issues, there is no improvement, and it has to do with the fact that nobody knows whose responsibility is it. Nobody has ownership of that part of the solution that we are building, and that costs enthusiasm, that costs clients, that costs money, and it costs time. Because finally you end up with half a solution, and that's never a good idea. And don't misunderstand me, I'm very happy with the fact that I co-founded the company. Probably I wouldn't have done it alone. So I needed really at that moment a hand, someone who said, okay, I believe in the product, I will go with you. But it is very important if you are co-founding, and it can be 2 people, but it can be 10 people as well, that you really find out what are the steps to take and who's going to take ownership for it. And that would have solved quite a lot of issues from the beginning, I think. Yeah.
And now what? Are you gonna keep doing it on your own? Are you gonna look for someone else?
You can't do it alone, what I'm doing, but doesn't mean that I need extra founders. Or entrepreneurs. We need extra colleagues. That's for sure, and we already have some. So over the last, we are working with 8 people at this moment. So because there is quite a lot of work to do. But I haven't been thinking so far of having a new co-founder in the company, or no. It's not that urgent at this moment.
Okay.
No.
Great.
Which doesn't mean that if there would be very interesting opportunities in the future, that I would really. I don't feel like owning a company alone is the best thing you can have. That's definitely it. I would have, if I really could, I would have chosen not to do it. I would have preferred to stay with a sidekick because it makes some things easier.
How do you mean? Do you mean that you wouldn't have started the business?
I would. Yes, I would. I don't. I still like the idea of co-founding.
Okay.
And if possible, I would have preferred to stay together.
Right.
And just to divide the tasks you have to do with 2 people and to do it properly. Mm-hmm. But then again, you need passion, and you need and it has to come from both parts. Otherwise, you can feel like if someone is pushing the accelerator and the other one the brake, it doesn't work.
No. Completely agree. I think it can also be very difficult to. Yeah, if you do it on your own, I think it can also be extremely difficult because in the moments that it gets tough, if you are with two, there's always at least someone that understands what you're going through, right? Because something that I do think that gets underestimated is when you're running a business and you have problems, you're always gonna have problems.
Yep.
You come home and maybe your spouse or your partner would like to support you, but by the time that you've explained what the issue is, they can't understand often what the issue is, or so they want to be there, but it's difficult because So I think that's difficult. It can be tough.
It's also how you're. Every person has a different approach to working and to developing and where he sees his or her role. But I think most people work better if they are surrounded by other people. And I'm definitely one of them. So I really like the interaction, and it can be tough sometimes, but you can also beat each other up to higher levels. And that's really the style that I like. I like confrontation in order to increase performances. And I would do exactly the same today, I think. Yeah, but just keeping in mind that from the beginning you have very clear. You speak out very clear where is the ownership for which part and who's going to tackle which problems. That's very important that you have a discussion like this from the beginning. Yeah.
All right, we are approaching the end already. As you are aware, we always have some couple of more personal questions when we finish off. But before I go there, I would like to ask, Lieven, is there anything else you would like to share about the journey of the last 2 years, or if you want to look ahead already to what's coming? Anything else you wanna convene to the audience before we go to the more personal questions?
The first thing that comes up is how grateful I am for the people that supported me. And in the first place, I have to think of my own family. It was without the help of my wife and of my 2 kids and their understanding, there would be no Lito Box today. I'm very sure about that. Because the efforts they brought, there were periods that I wasn't a lot at home. It's still the case today. But also, of course, I had to take some financial risks, which, of course, I discussed with them as well. But the most important is the idea or the support, the mental support you get from the people, from your own family, the people around you, is probably the most important. If they don't believe in what you're doing, I think it's very hard to come up with your dream or to stay believing. So, and not everybody is as lucky as I am in that. You can't choose your own family, I think. You can maybe choose your own partner, but you never know how likely they are to support you in such an adventure like I did. But I was really, really lucky. So I can't say, but thanks a lot for their support.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe we just better close it off here.
And I already apologize for the years that are coming.
I think that's a very beautiful statement.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lieven is gonna be I think quite happy when she hears this.
I hope so.
Okay. So what do we do? Are we going to ask him some more personal questions or going to close it off here?
You can choose.
Maybe we close it off here.
Okay.
I think it's a very beautiful...
Shout out to Helen, my wife, and kids, Rosalie and Elvire. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Very beautiful. Lieven, then thank you again, as always. I found it a very interesting conversation. I really, really hope we can do this again in 2 years.
I hope so, yeah.
We've been having conversations also off the podcast throughout the last couple of years. And I think it's always very nice because our organizations have been growing kind of at the same steps, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
So it always has been nice to talk to you on the podcast. But
they often say same size companies fit quite well, and I really have this feeling with Lito Box and Bao Living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we also did our first project together this year.
Yeah.
Shout out. Now that we're giving shout out. Shout out to Eon. Because they. Maybe we should have brought that up way sooner. I found that really cool. I think we've done with that project. I think we did something that was never been done before, like a complete renovation of a building of that size in that time frame. Yeah, I found it very cool.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's beautiful in the center of Brussels. 7 levels, if I'm right, 6 or 7 levels, 40 units. 40 units, and the Lito boxes were delivered. I think at 8 o'clock in the morning, and before noon, everything was in place. The commissioning, however, took some longer.
But they were
like always. But that's where the future innovation comes in place. But it's a beautiful project, and I'm quite sure that a lot of cities, because it's a refurbished building, and there's a lot of added value in that building in every sense. So I'm very happy with it, and I really hope we can do similar projects in the future. I really hope so as well, because the synergies between what we do with the SAM and what you do with the Lito, it's just, we saw it there. Complete renovation in how long they started, in like March, and by the end of the summer it could have been done if some certain elements of the project followed. But such a renovation in less than a year is really it's very, and with one of the big advantages also for the neighborhood, there wasn't a lot of inconvenience.
Almost nothing.
We were there like 4 hours with a truck and a crane and finished. So imagine if this would have been done in the traditional way, where 40 units would have had their installation on site. There would have been vans for weeks or months, and it was a beautiful project.
Let's hope when we sit back together in 2 years, we can look back on a couple more of those, right?
Yeah, great.
All right,
fine.
Lieven, thank you very much. As I said, hopefully we have more conversations, and then I would like to close it off here. Thank you for listening. Yep. If you have any questions, I think in Spotify now you can also put questions below, so try that. Comment on the YouTube channel. And then last but not least, if you would like to experience this new vamped Lito box, go to lito.com, right?
.be.
Okay, lito.be.
Lito.be.
For this year, I understood it was difficult to deliver, but from next year onwards, there are more options, right?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks for listening to the Bao Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe to our channel. If you're interested in Bao Living and our Smart Adaptable Module, or SAM, go check out our website, baoliving.com. If you want to stay up to date, you can best subscribe to our monthly newsletter on our website, or follow us on all social media platforms where we're named @Bao Living.